Hey, welcome to the Chef Dana Show. I'm so excited. It is season 3 right here on DETV. This season, you are going to enjoy some of the guests we have coming on and, of course, the cuisine that we're throwing down. Today, we're doing a bruschetta, but not just any old bruschetta. We're doing a lobster and shrimp bruschetta. We're gonna do it 2 ways. So I'm gonna give it to you one way on the savory side and another way where you can kind of do it for brunch, lighten it up a little bit, all right? So let's check out some of the ingredients that we're gonna be using today. I have some peppers and onions going on. We've got some shrimp. We've got some lobster. My favorite, Gouda cheese. Got a little bit of chives, a little garlic, a little bit of Old Bay seasoning, a little lemon juice just to brighten it up a little bit. And of course, we're gonna need some eggs for that breakfast one. So let's jump into it. First thing I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna cut up my peppers and my onions. Now for the peppers, because we're doing a high heat method, I chose to use the male pepper. Now some of you guys, they're just joining us and might not have learned from the other seasons, there is a male and there is a female pepper. The male pepper is better for cooking, the heat. See how it has the 3 humps on the bottom, all right? 3 humps on the bottom of the pepper means it's a male pepper. 4 humps means it's a female pepper, all right? So let's cut that pepper. Let's do that first. Cut the end off. Cut the end off here, all right? And then let's get into that pepper. Okay, so we got the pepper. Good. I always like to check the inside of the pepper. If you see something that you don't like, cut it out. Cut it out. Every once in a while, you'll get a surprise in there, okay? And I'm gonna cut the membrane out of this guy right here. There we go, good. So on our peppers, I'm just gonna dice them, just like this. Small dice. Okay. I like the small dice. I think it's easier for the bruschetta. Not such a big piece in your mouth. Let's say that, right? So we're gonna cut up these peppers. Then we're gonna move into the onion. Now for the onion, I'm only gonna use about half an onion or so. I don't think we need to overdo it. Now many bruschettas, if you look them up, they're gonna say that bruschettas classically, it's an Italian dish. What makes a bruschetta, normally it's the flatbread, right? Normally a piece of bread that's grilled or toasted, a little bit of salt, pepper, a little oil, and so forth. And then a lot of times it's gonna have onions, it's gonna have tomatoes. Today we opted not to do the tomato, and we're gonna switch it up and use some peppers. Okay, let's get the peel off of here. And then, like I said, I'm gonna use about half an onion today. I don't think we need a whole one, unless you're cooking for 5 or something like that. Okay. And again, we're gonna do the small dice, so I'm just gonna cut some slices, come right back across. It's important with onions that you have a sharp knife. If you don't have a sharp knife, it will let you know. The knife should be gliding through the onion. You shouldn't hear a whole lot of crunching. If you're hearing a lot of crunching, you're gonna be crying, all right? So you wanna make sure your knife's nice and sharp and that you let the knife do the work. Not a lot of pressure. Let the knife do the work. All right, so there we go. We got our onions, we got our peppers. We're gonna get ready to do a little cooking. So we're gonna end up sauteing these peppers and onions. Got my pan on right here. We're gonna turn it up. Now, if you don't have one of these, you got to check it out. These GE ovens and GE ranges and GE tabletops, they are awesome. Profile series. Touch controls, slide them with your finger and everything. All right, let's get some oil in the pan. Now, it's important. I should be doing a quiz right now. For everybody who was here for season 2 and 3, why do we put the oil in the pan? And we let it get what? We let it get hot. Why? Because we want the food to actually sear in the oil, and we don't want the pores of the food to open up, suck the oil up, and then seal themselves shut. That's how you wind up with greasy food at your friend's house, right? And I know we've all been there. We've been to somebody's house, and you're like, whoo-wee, that food was greasy. That's why. So we're letting our pan heat up, move our oil around here so it coats the bottom nicely, and then we're going to go in here with our onions. All right, let me test one. Make sure I'm hearing that sizzle. It's kind of sizzling. It's kind of sizzling. We're going to give it 60 seconds. So while we're waiting 60 seconds for that, let's take a look at the bread I have today. So today I just have some flatbread, right? I've split it in half as such, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of oil, okay? You can use olive oil. That's the most common, especially over there in Italy. You can use a little bit of olive oil, or you can use some of your other heart-healthy oils. And we're just drizzling a little bit, okay? Just going to drizzle a little bit. Now I'm going to take my salt and pepper shaker, my grinders here, give it a little love on each piece. Bread is one of those things, it loves to be seasoned. A lot of people sleep on this, but bread actually loves to be seasoned, especially with a pinch of salt. A lot of people, and many people know me for being a baker, but a lot of people don't understand that within our baking recipes, there is a little bit of sodium, a little bit of salt. That makes it taste good. All right, I'm gonna do one more piece since I got space here on my grill. And I know my friends, they're gonna wanna eat this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and drizzle this last piece just a little bit. I don't want it to be oily, but just enough to give it some love. Okay. Again, a little bit of salt, just like that. A little bit of pepper. That's that sal and pimiento, if we're talking Spanish. And we flip that. And then I'm going to go ahead and close my press here for just a minute or two. All right, give that bread a little bit of color, a little bit of life. All right, so it looks like my pan is hot there. I see my little lone onion. My lone onion is sizzling. So that means we're gonna go ahead, throw the rest of our onions in there. There we go, that's that sound I wanted to hear. That nice little sizzle. All right, I'm gonna add my peppers to here. Again, male pepper does well with high heat. So, we're going to let those two marry, should we say. The flavors will come together. We want to get a little bit of color on our onions. If you see a few pieces, just break them up, kind of how I'm doing. But don't make a mess, like how I was doing. All right? We're going to hit it with a little bit of salt and pepper while it's cooking. The secret is if you hit it with a little salt and pepper now, you actually use less pepper later. Less salt later. I said pepper. If you hit it with a little salt, pepper down, you actually use less salt later. All right? So there we go. We got our onions going. We got the peppers in there, a little salt and pepper. Move them around a bit so they get a little love. Okay. In the meantime, let's talk about the shrimp. So we have our shrimp and we have our lobster right here. Now we're gonna need to cut these up so that they're in more of, I guess you could say, bite-sized little pieces to go along with our dish, all right? So let's get to the lobster. So these are just Maine lobsters coming from the cold water, all right? When I lived in Rhode Island and I went to Johnson & Wales University for culinary, they were so common, you know, it's like as common as peaches are to the state of Delaware. They were everywhere, everywhere. All right, so I'm just cutting up my lobster in little pieces. So it's gonna cook really quickly. Okay. One thing about seafood is that seafood cooks really, really, really fast. Like the problem is sometimes people let it go a little bit too long. And it gets kind of tough, you know what I mean? So you want to cook it just until it's done. My onions and peppers are smelling lovely. Getting some color to them, which is what we want. So there is our lobster. I'll move that to the side. Let's get some shrimp on the board. Let's chop them up. All right, this is one of my favorites growing up. I love shrimp in all ways. Shrimp gumbo, shrimp toast, shrimp etouffee, shrimp and rice. I love shrimp. My wife, she's a scallop girl. So together, we go very well together. All right, so here's a little shrimp. I'm gonna cut up just a little more. Why? Because I love shrimp. All right, and then once these are cut, we're gonna go to the pan with these. Okay, just rough chopping. Again, they're gonna cook pretty quickly. Okay. All right, so let's check our pan out here. We got our shrimp, we got our lobster. I'm moving around my peppers and my onions. They're starting to get some color to them, which is beautiful. Let's add in a little bit of garlic, shall we? Okay. Get that sauteing. Come on now. This is outrageous. Let's add in a little bit of our shrimp. Going in right now. Okay. Let's add in our lobster right now. Here we go. So I'm just mixing up my onions in with that shrimp and lobster meat. Just moving that around so that the shrimp actually get to the pan, so we get some searing going on. So the lobster gets to the pan. We're gonna sprinkle this with a little bit of, my bread is done, y'all. Hold on. I might have burned that one. Let me see. I just added in my Old Bay seasoning. Let me check my bread. Oh my goodness. Look what I did. That's all right though. Hold on. I don't like that piece. That piece gotta go. We really cook on this show, y'all. I don't know about everywhere else, but we really cook. Look what I did to my bread. This one I could use. This one, I don't like that. So I'm gonna put on one more. And then that one I had, that's just no. We're not gonna use that. So here's my shrimp and lobster mixture. While that's going, I'm gonna get rid of this board and my knife because I was cutting seafood, right? Y'all know the rules. Cutting seafood, get rid of the board. I'm gonna do one more piece of bread. Y'all better not tell on me. Be like, I saw a chef on the show. He burned 2 out of those 3 pieces of bread. I know he did. Yes, I did it. All right, here we go. I was talking to y'all. See, that's why. All right. There's my salt. Here's my pepper. And I'm going to put this right on. We're going to keep an eye on this one. All right, that one is good though. That's actually a nice one for bruschetta. So with all bruschetta, if you look it up, all bruschetta is grilled bread. So you need something that's got some, what's the word for it? Got some toughness to it so that you can actually pick it up. This is actually not bad because it's nice and crispy. All right, but that other one, I ain't like it. I was being picky. All right, so here is my bruschetta mixture right here. This is the shrimp, the lobster, the peppers, the onions, and so forth. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this off the stove. Why? Because I know it's just about done. I don't want to overcook it. I don't want to turn my seafood into rubber. Okay. So my next move is we're gonna get ready to make a little bit of what we call velouté. So what's velouté? Fancy word for gravy. It's chicken stock thickened with a little bit of roux. Okay. So look, y'all got me nervous. I'm over here peeking at my bread now. See how pretty that is? Just a tad bit longer though. It doesn't have the, what's the word for it? The strength to it yet to hold up on its own, but it's close. All right, so in our pot here, let's make our gravy. In there, we're going in there with some butter. A little mantequilla, as you call it. We want to melt that. Get that melting. Okay. Once the butter's melted, then we're going to add the flour. We cook the flour a little bit because we want to get that chalky flavor out of the dish. Biggest mistake people make is, oh yeah, I'm going to make a gravy, and then you be like, what is that taste? That's the starch. All right, here is my piece of bruschetta. Look at that. All right, we got 2 pieces there. All right, so there's my butter. My butter's melting. We're gonna add to this our flour. Going in. Let's start to mix that up. We want to get that to turn into a nice little paste. Now the secret is when we're cooking in the restaurants, a lot of times we have roux sitting right up on the shelf, right up on the counter. When we're on the line and we're cooking, we keep roux kind of handy on standby. So as we're cooking and we need to thicken the sauce a little bit, we'll just take a little spoon and just whoop, pop a little roux right in there. Now, if you are somebody that cannot have gluten and you're eating out, it's important that you talk to your servers, you talk to the hostess, talk to the chefs and say, hey, as you're making, this Alfredo sauce, or you're doing this, or you're doing that, is there any roux in there? Because, I'm allergic to gluten and I'm just checking because it's such a common thing for us to just take a little bit and do. So that's just a little Chef Dana tip for you guys. All right. So there is our flour and butter in there. I'm letting it cook for just a second. It's changing color a little bit, which is cool. That means it's developing flavor, and I've cooked out the starches. There are different levels to roux. Like you could have a blonde roux, a brown roux, a red roux. When you start getting to those browns and reds, that's when you're down there in like Louisiana. You're doing that New Orleans cooking. New Orleans. All right, so now I'm adding some of my stock. And I just want to make just a little gravy, a little sauce for the breakfast one. And again, very simply, it's just a little bit of chicken stock and roux. Roux is just flour and butter. Okay, and I'm just adding a little bit of chicken stock at a time because I want to control the consistency and the thickness and so forth. Now remember, this does have starch in here. So let's say, oh chef, I might have added a little bit too much stock. How do I deal with that? Let it cook a little bit. Bring some of that moisture down. But you have to stir it when you do, because if not, the starch will settle to the bottom, and then you're going to end up burning your nice little velouté. But here we go. This is just a quick little velouté. See how it clings to the rubber spatula? Just like that. Okay. All right, so that's our velouté. Velouté is done. I'm gonna move that to the side. I'm gonna turn my heat down some because we're gonna get ready to make a little bit of eggs. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of butter from the fridge and we're gonna start to make our eggs. Okay, so let me get some butter. I've had my one pan here on a very low warm setting, not very high, because again, I don't want to burn the eggs, burn the butter, or anything like that. So we're going to take a little bit of butter, about 2 tablespoons or so. start to melt that. Yep, beautiful. It's a nice, gentle melting. While that is melting, a couple things we're gonna do. We're gonna crack some eggs in our dish here. Uh-oh. I think you're gonna like this one, because this totally takes the lobster bruschetta and turns it up to new heights. Okay. Boom. Okay, there we go. So I'm just gonna whisk my eggs, get my butter melting. I'm gonna turn up a little bit. Don't mind if we turn up in season 3, right? We're gonna turn up. All right, let's whisk our eggs. So I actually got inspired for this dish by my friend Lori out in Minnesota. I used to work as a chef on one of her teams when we worked in the pharmaceutical sector. And we would go to all these cool restaurants together, right? And this one restaurant, they had a lobster bruschetta, and I said, oh snap, when I get home, it just opened me up. When I get home, I gotta turn it up a couple notches. So Lori, if you're watching, this one's for you. All right, so here's our butter melted in the pan. Turn up just a tiny bit more. Good. Okay. Let's get ready to add in here our eggs. And we just want to do like a soft scramble. Nice and gentle. What's that mean? I gotta be patient, move it back and forth, and all that good stuff from time to time. All right, so I got my spatula out for that. In the meantime, we keep our Gouda on deck. You know what's gonna happen with the Gouda. We're putting some Gouda in this thing. All right, and then I'm gonna take a little bit of my shrimp and lobster creation here. So I'm showing you, you can use it for breakfast, a breakfast bruschetta, or an appetizing type bruschetta. So we're gonna put a little bit in there. All right, and then we're just gonna move it back and forth just a little bit. Just like that. And the egg is starting to coagulate on the bottom of the pan, so I gotta kind of treat it nicely, back and forth, and then I'll give it a second. Always make sure to go around the edges, and then we're gonna give it a second to do its thing. While it's doing its thing, I'm gonna do my thing, and I'm gonna grab my chives, and I'm gonna chop some chives up here. We're gonna use this for our garnish. For our breakfast one. Okay. So this is part of my garnish for the breakfast one. When my eggs are done, I'm gonna sprinkle this on with the velouté and so forth. Let's check our eggs. Moving back and forth. Okay. Just like that. When I worked at Marriott, when I tell you, we used to make some omelets. We would make, and this is not being facetious, probably 65, 75 omelets like a morning out on the buffet. So we used to do some eggs. Chef used to make some eggs on a regular basis. There were times when we would pout, be like, Chef, why I gotta go out there, make all them omelets? But then the tips from all them omelets. All right, here we go. Eggs are starting to do good. I can start to see some bigger pieces of egg forming in the pan. We're gonna go with what we call a soft scramble. Now for some people, they're like, oh, well, I don't like my eggs that wet. They might want to do a harder scramble, but I think this is nicer when it's softer. Okay, but if you're seeing here, you can start to see the bigger egg bits are starting to form. Just like this. Moving that spatula around nice and soft. Not giving it a whole lot of time to form in the pan. Okay? See right there when I move my spatula, you can see it. So I need to get on the good foot and do my stirring now because it's going to start moving. But as I drag back and forth, see how it's leaving the gap? Watch this. Gap. That means it's coming. That means it's coming. And it's going to come pretty quickly. Sometimes you'll even hear a sound when you're moving your spatula. You hear that little sst. That means she's moving and grooving. All right, couple more moves. Spread it out a second. And go. Yep, I heard that sound again. Okay, soft scramble coming. Now this is a dish you could easily, it's say, if you're like, well, chef, I can't do seafood, right? You could easily change it from shrimp and lobster to chicken or something like that. That would work really well. Could you do beef? Yeah, but I think chicken would be better if you didn't want to do seafood, especially because you have the velouté. The velouté is a sauce made with the chicken stock. If you're like, well, chef, I got some shrimp stock or some lobster stock hanging around, boom, you could do that too. That'd be delicious. Okay, so a lot of people say, well, chef, where do I get the shrimp stock? I've never seen shrimp stock at my, ShopRite or Giant or Acme or something like that. So the way you develop a shrimp stock or a lobster stock in this case, if I had wanted to, I could have taken those shells, threw them in a pan, sauteed the shells, then filled the pan up with some water. I could have sauteed some veggies in there and just created my own stock. All right, here we go. So you can see my eggs are starting to come together really well. They are nice and soft. Okay. Couple turns here. I'm gonna get a tiny bit more wetness off of them. Even for me, that's a little too wet. Okay. So I'm gonna just spread this out and I'm gonna let the pan do the work. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off right now. And we're gonna start to pull our bruschetta together. So we have 2 bruschettas here. All right, like I said, you can see both of them are crispy, which is what we want. Okay, perfect. Perfecto. Okay, let's work on bruschetta number 1. So bruschetta number 1, it's simple. We're just gonna add our shrimp and lobster mixture. Just like this. Go at it with my tongs. And we're just gonna come right down the middle of here. Because keep in mind, some of it's gonna fall over on the side. Now for your bruschetta, if you wanted bite-sized ones, you could do that. Okay. You could do that. I'm giving you the hungry man version, but you could do that. Okay. Now there's one thing I'm gonna do to this one that I'm not doing to the other one. And that's because I don't like a whole lot of lemon in my eggs. I'm just saying, it's just not something that I like. But on something like this one, you wake it up with a little bit of squeeze of lemon juice, right? Just like that. And then we finish it off with a little bit of chopped chives. So that's bruschetta number 1. Okay. And let's do bruschetta number 2. That's bruschetta number 1. Bruschetta number 2. We're gonna put a little smoked Gouda down on this bread right here. Just like that. Now we're gonna take some of this egg. Just gonna mix it up just a little bit. Let me get my spoon, or 2 spoons, because we got sauce too. Okay, so we're gonna get the spoon, start to put on the egg. If Lori's watching, I know she's like, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. Yes, I did, Lori. I took that lobster bruschetta we had that time, turned it up a couple notches on you. Okay, so now we're just putting our egg on here, right? Boom. I'm gonna move it to the plate. We're gonna grab some of our, y'all remember the word? Velouté. Look, for some of y'all people out there thinking of catering, right? You change the word from gravy to velouté, that's automatic $2 increase, I'm telling you right now. Anyway. They're like, oh my gosh, they got velouté. So, nevertheless, let's give it just a little bit of sauce. So we're just gonna drizzle that velouté right on top of there, just like this. And of course, we're gonna finish it with a little bit of chive. There we go, y'all. That is our lobster bruschetta 2 ways. We have the more dinner version, which has the lobster, the shrimp, the peppers, the onions, and so forth, classically on a piece of toasted bread. On the other side, though, we got the brunch version, where we have the soft scrambled eggs with the lobster and shrimp with the peppers and onions, along with a velouté and smoked Gouda, and topped with a little bit of chives. I'm Chef Dana. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Chef Dana Show. We'll see you back next time right here on DETV.